Genetic regulators control the production of the polyketide synthase, while resistance genes provide the resistance, provides for the resistance to the polyketide antibiotic that is being made. Where does antibiotic resistance come from? Well, bacteria make antibiotics that kill other bacteria, of course. Antibiotic producers contain genes that encode resistance to their own antibiotics. And antibiotic resistance genes get passed to other bacteria by genetic transfer mechanisms. Resistant genes are often found in plasmids, and we talked about in a different lecture how important those plasmids are when bacteria communicate, but I'm going to talk about that when that lecture is going to be my focus. Okay, how do bacteria protect themselves against antibiotics? Well, they can prevent antibiotics from entering their bodies, and that's a passive method of exclusion. For instance, gram-negatives have the thicker outer membrane that would do a great job at that. They can also actively pump the antibiotic out with transporter genes, and there's an example of that. Tet-A is a tetracycline exporter. We don't want you here. Then we have enzymatically destruction of the antibiotic through obviously enzyme genes. The example of that are B-lactamase and penicillin. Then enzymatically modify the antibiotic with also enzyme genes. Chloramphenicol acetyltransferase does that. That's not good. We don't want that. Immunity, of course. You can modify the cellular target with spontaneous mutations in the target. For instance, streptomycin binds directly to ribosomes, and some mutations in ribosome prevent streptomycin binding. Antibiotic resistance, unfortunately, is on the rise. The more we use antibiotics, the more resistance increases. And it's not easy to make antibiotics. It takes about 20 years to find, develop, and test a new antibiotic, whereas it takes maybe 2 years for bacteria to become resistant. So a good way to prevent antibiotics from becoming resistant is only taking antibiotics for bacterial infections. If you have a cold or a flu, those are viral infections, and antibiotics won't help. So that's important. You don't want to take antibiotics for nothing and risk raising the antibiotic resistance of your body. When sick, you have to take full prescription of antibiotics. A partial dose will not kill all the bacteria, and if any survive, they will have a very good chance of evolving resistance. There's also the solution of taking a combination of antibiotics, like in the case of HIV, a cocktail of antibiotics. While some bacteria are multi-drug resistant, they may not be resistant to the particular combination. So there are ways, you just need to be aware of them. Stop using antibiotics on farm animals, please. About 25 million pounds of antibiotics per year are administered to livestock in the USA, and occasionally it's to protect animals from disease, but mostly it's because antibiotics increase body mass. And I don't know about you, but I don't agree with that. So resistance arises on the farm and it spreads to human pathogens, and that eventually is gonna harm us. And I guess you can eat extra fatty hamburgers, but you're gonna be sick and you're gonna die and you won't be able to enjoy them. So stop doing that, please, whoever does it. If we stop using a particular antibiotic temporarily, we find that resistance in bacteria will decrease for some reason that I don't know. The most common way to combat this disease is through vaccines, which is a deliberately introduced antigen to raise antibodies prior to an actual infection. Making antibodies specific to a pathogen is slow during an infection, so vaccines trick the body into making antibodies before an infection occurs. And your body is this way primed to fight even early infections. Yay for vaccines. Let's see. Anything else? Okay, probiotics. Probiotics are living organisms which, when ingested, may confer increased resistance to infection. They may add to or enhance native flora to prevent infection. They may create a low-grade immune response to prime the body against infection, or they may not do anything and it's just placebo. Now, biocontrol are basically probiotics for plants. It's basically adding harmless or beneficial bacteria to the soil to reduce disease and reduce pesticide use. These biocontrol bacteria, they form biofilms on roots, which I'm gonna have a different video about. They enhance the general resistance pathways, or they might not do anything like probiotics and it's just placebo. The mechanism is basically unknown, and that pisses me off, but I don't care that much at this point. I just want to have this final over with. That's it for antibiotics.